You're either prompting too little or too much. And what I'm going to do in this video is show you the difference between the two and how to actually prompt correctly in every single situation you find yourself in. Here is how to know how you should actually be prompting cursor. And I'm going to split this up into when to prompt like a normal human being versus when to prompt like an absolute maniac. So the very, very first step of all of this is when to prompt like a normal human being. This is really easy. And that is literally the first one, when the build is easy. So what do I mean by easy? If a prompt is building something that's pretty easy, as in there's, minimal moving parts, things are going quite well, you can probably make this inside of make or NaN. That is when you should prompt like a normal human being. So those things include, like I said, minimal moving parts. If this in Zapier was, like a 3-step thing, or it doesn't actually have to do a lot of things at once, then you get into a position where things are actually really easy to build. And what you're doing is just getting a really, really small stone just placed on the concrete ground so that you can build exactly what you need to build. Another part of this is when there isn't really an excessive need for an intricate SOP to be followed. So no excessive need for an intricate SOP. So what I mean by that, sometimes you may have done, what are you doing? Sometimes you may have done something which has 15 different holes in it. You may be, for example, let's say you are building something that was going to write a lot of content for you, but after a bunch of iterations on content that you've made, exactly how content should be written versus how it kind of comes out through AI in the first place. If you write like a maniac, you usually get every single idea down. If you don't, you will start from square one with 0 iterations down, and you kind of want to avoid that. So if you're in a position where you need an excessive amount of context because you've done loads and loads of iterations already, you shouldn't be prompting like a normal human being. You should be prompting like an absolute maniac. And the final part is you basically being able to draw this up inside of a no-code tool. So could probably make this yourself in NaN. Now, given the way that a lot of agentic workflows work, it's all code-based, which means you don't actually need to be able to code things and make an NaN. And oftentimes you'll be able to do things there which you can't do in make an NaN, but the general gist still applies. If you could probably make this yourself, then this is what prompting like a normal human being actually would mean. Then we have when to prompt like an absolute maniac, which is obviously one of my favorite things in the world. And I'll show you in this video exactly how to prompt like a maniac in the best way humanly possible. And this is obviously going to be the different or the opposite side of the other side of the coin. When the build is hard. What do I mean by hard? Hard means that there is multiple moving parts. Multiple moving parts includes loads of things that need to talk to each other. It includes just the sheer volume of work that's required for a specific feature, or it includes both a front end and a back end, and they need to speak to each other in specific ways. You also need to prompt like an absolute maniac if you've done thousands of iterations and know exactly what works and what doesn't, and you need to be able to capture all of the context to make this work as well as you want it to. This basically means you have really high standards for the thing that's about to be created, and you know what those standards are, and you need to be able to communicate those. The final part of this is where you're doing things that genuinely could take you months to complete. And by months to complete, it means if you were to give this to somebody in 2017 who was a 10x coder and they were tasked with creating this thing that could potentially sell for a ton of money, and you're trying to do it through Cursor, if you give it a stupid 3-line prompt, do you think it's going to get, do you think you're going to get anywhere with that? You actually have to prompt with every single thing possible inside of the prompt so that you can get the right idea of exactly what's needed. So these are the times to prompt like a normal human being, and these are the times to prompt like an absolute maniac. Now, I've shown examples of prompting like a normal human being in previous videos, but here's an example. This one here was the website scraper. It's just basic goal and definition of success. The goal is something that you can come up with in, 5 seconds with just a little bit of typing out what you're actually trying to get to. And the definition of success includes all of the things that you know already, and what you know or what you need to do does not contain a ton of stuff. Another example, again, the email cleaner, goal, definition of success. And in this case, the actual build out has been provided in code by a software platform that is doing exactly what needs to be done. So that kind of covers exactly what I mean when I say there are ways to prompt like a normal human being, and I've already covered what those are. Now we're going to cover my best and favorite way to prompt like an absolute maniac, and it uses a tool, or it uses a particular practice that's ubiquitous in Claude Code, but I've taken it out of the Claude Code environment and we're now doing it inside of the Claude desktop. So I'm going to show you that in a second. This is how to prompt like a maniac. So I'm going to open up, in fact, I've already opened this up, and I'll show you the difference between prompting normally versus prompting like a maniac, and the thing that you need to do in order to do exactly what I fulfilled here. This is something that I literally just got done doing, and it's going to be really, really helpful for you when it comes time to you building something that you know you need to build. And it follows all of the processes that I know are necessary in order to complete something, and that is huge, whilst also being able to get out absolutely every single bit of detail. So we'll start off with the current plan. The current plan is I want to create a business watcher, a tool that has access to my Airtable, Google Calendar, Slack, Fathom, and my client Make, NAN, and Airtable accounts via API keys and personal access tokens, and sends me daily updates in my Slack channel that spits out what to talk about on meetings, including but not limited to pending tasks, tasks that are orphaned, as in they don't have an associated client, tasks that have been in active stages for too long, tasks that can or should be deleted based on how they've locked, all of this stuff. So what I've done is I actually got halfway through this and realized I needed to prompt like an absolute lunatic. So the difference between the initial prompts inside of the website scraper or the email cleaner, like I showed just now, versus this one, is where this contained all of this information here. Now, there is something that is inside of Claude Code, which is, I don't think it's on the actual UX or the UI or it's not like a .md file that you would have stored in just like one of your files, but it's called the Ask User Question tool. And the Ask User Question tool is exactly what you see in Cursor when multiple choice questions come up in plan mode. You ask a bunch of different questions and then you require a bunch of different answers from them, and you just want to go through as many of these as humanly possible. The problem with Cursor sometimes that I found is that it will do 3 or 4 rounds of that and stop. So I took that exact same idea and the idea from the Ask User Questions tool to generate the prompt that I'm about to show you now. Play the role of an enterprise director of operations. So this here is just the role of whatever I'm trying to accomplish here. The above is a product that I'm giving to Cursor that is not fully complete. I need to get every single iota of information that is currently being a hindrance to me in my business down in here before I send it off so that Cursor knows exactly what to do. There are a number of different considerations that I want to add that I need you to quiz, investigate, and thoroughly help me identify using consistent questioning from current conversations that we've had, as well as what you can see with the implementation required based on how I work with clients. And this is the key here. Use 10 to 20 multiple choice questions per message and do not stop until you have the entire picture. Be supremely thorough. Once done, present to me the entire prompt in markdown with all information. So this here took the context that I've given it already. It's taken the context on top of that, including the initial prompt. And then I've added this here to ask me all of the multiple choice questions that it can. The beauty of doing this in this way is that I have context 7 MCP attached to my Claude account, which means that where I need API documentation, it will look for it in the middle of the conversation, and you'll see how that works. So these were the questions. Round 1, data sources and access patterns. The structure. I have one master Airtable based on multiple tables, separate Airtables. I have a hybrid. Each project type has its own base. and then I would just put 1, 2, or whatever. Which of these Airtables currently exist in your operational base? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Other, I'll specify. This was when context 7 really comes correct. And I also have the Airtable MCP as well. So it's just got access to my own base, and you'll see that in a second. But these are the types of questions it's coming up with. Time-based rules and thresholds. For tasks in active stages too long, what's your threshold? For tasks that should be potentially deleted, the criteria is this, that, or the other. And you can see that the fact that it's giving it four questions here, A to D, where a lot of them can be no and this, or none of the above, or all of the above, has been really helpful. So I'm going to skip down to the end of this round and show you what my input was. It's just 1 to 20. These are my questions. These are my notes. This is everything here. But then I also said this because I actually wanted to add some more to the actual features. And this is the benefit of having this back and forth. If you don't have an actual back and forth, what can happen is it will build up an idea of exactly what it needs to be doing, but you'll forget to give it the information that you actually want to give it. Imagine talking to, like a partner, or you're living with a partner and they're doing something in the house that you are annoyed about, but you don't tell them. It's the exact same situation that's going on here with Claude. If you don't give it the information that you want to give it, whilst in the process of creating these questions, you'll actually miss out on the planning process in and of itself. Oh, that is the wrong screen. So here we have gotten it to pretty much say, this is going to be an AI agent clone of me, account manager with technical and operational ability. So all roles that I would do needs to be built into this step by step. Starting with the biggest problem, which is keeping tabs on client projects as they evolve. Now, I believe I went in some of these notes. Yeah, I said use your newly connected Airtable MCP to find out some information from question 2, which was which of these Airtable tables currently exist in your operation space. So what it did was it listed my bases, got the base schema, and then it started to really use all of the information. And I knew it had it because I have these as my project sizes, because One Punch Man, I like One Punch Man. So that's the reason why I have those as my project sizes. It has all of this information about my different types of, different client types. And it's now referencing data specifically from my own Airtable, which is absolutely perfect. And now it just goes into another set of 20 questions. These were my answers, where sometimes the explanations or the questions it provided, I needed to give it some other stuff, or I wanted to talk about some other things. In the middle of these, and this is just the general nature of all of this as well. In the middle of these, you'll find out, firstly, where it can sometimes do a little bit too much, and also where it can do not enough. So here I asked it to use context 7 to answer or restate any uncertain questions about Make's API, and that's where it gave me this last list of bits of information, with new information generated from what's actually capable or what's possible inside of Make.com's API. Then we had a list of all of these questions that were filled out, and then once it was filled out, it gave me the complete product specification. Now watch the scroll. I'll show you how big this came out. Executive summary, vision, all of these. I now have a system architecture. I have the tech stack. I have a bunch of stuff about my own rules based on my own Airtable bases. I have core features in here, including examples of the Slack messages that it's going to send. I have meeting brief structures. I have a ton of stuff. I'm still scrolling. I'm still scrolling. I'm still scrolling. All of this information is right here. Now, you may be wondering, why would you put all of this inside of a cursor chat? Isn't there only a 200,000 context window, which means you can't actually get reams upon reams upon reams of information inside of the chat and have it work to do something? I'm still scrolling. There's just a bunch of things here that you won't be able to put into one chat, which is absolutely correct. So here's what I did. First, I read maybe the first quarter of this, because I knew that there was a bunch of things in here that it was going and going and going, and I'd gotten down here and realized I hadn't even finished producing what I needed to produce. So I gave it some amendments that I wanted to go over, because the plan includes a bunch of things that may or may not, that may need to be changed based on what it's actually assumed instead of what I actually wanted. And then I gave it my Claude.md file, and I told it I'm using something called the DOE framework. This is my Claude.md file. Break this up into individual conversations that I can have with Cursor, because this is a lot of shit. Give me them in order of priority for building this. I want immediate ROI. What that then did is it then chunked the entire roadmap into different prompts. So you can see how contained this one is. And now that looks very, very, very similar to how the initial not so maniacal prompts looked over here. So you can see here we have the goal, we have the definition of success. It's pretty small. It's pretty usable as well. Being able to translate that into this is how we've been able to get all of these conversations to come up. So this is conversation 1, which is project health monitor, and its understanding of what is high ROI for me versus what isn't came from a lot of those multiple choice questions as well. There were some specific questions that were asking what's most important, or what goal do you want to achieve the most. This is my cursor prompt. Conversation 2, this is my cursor prompt. Conversation 3, this is my prompt. Conversation 4, and again, it goes into phases. So this is week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6. But these are the prompts. Sometimes it breaks just based on, you know, what it's doing over here. So that's just this being rubbish. But then you have all of this meeting prep generator. Here's another one, phase 4, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And you can see here that there's a priority order here. There's a number of days for each individual mini feature. And this is I would say the most important takeaway of this. Whatever you build, progress in stages. Do not try and do a million things at once, or do not do something that you have just an inclination that the thing is just not going to work. And you would know what's not going to work based on an understanding of how AI works in the first place, which I can probably dive into in a separate video. Reducing the amount of context that you use is always going to be your benefit. So starting multiple smaller conversations and then having Cursor do its own planning and then building means that you can build tiny bits, check it, confirm it's good, iterate on it if needs be, and then go on to the next one. And you can go through and build this entire thing with minimal slip-ups as long as you do those things. So this is exactly how I've been able to create certain prompts that are running a number of things that are building massive things on the back end. So just to summarize, here is how to know how you should actually be prompting Cursor. You should prompt like a normal human being when the build is easy, i.e. there's minimal moving parts, there's no excessive need for an intricate SOP, and you can probably make this yourself in NaN. When to prompt like an absolute maniac is when the build is hard. When there's multiple moving parts, it could take months to complete, or you've done hundreds of iterations and you know exactly what works and what doesn't, and you need to be able to capture all of the context to make this work as well as you want it to. So that kind of summarizes how this entire thing's meant to work. Go for multiply, keep using Cursor to make these agentic workflows, and you'll see some videos over to the side somewhere with more information and more videos based on the things that are currently going on right now inside of Cursor. Have a look at my build outs playlist, and also have a look at my operations playlist if you're a business owner who's trying to not be the single point of failure inside of his or her business.